Okay, so this is Frontier Opening Bell from Frontier Africa Reports. I am boosting number 5. It's Tuesday, the second trading day of the week, the 7th day of September. Welcome my guest on the show today, Joshua Debisi, Head of Banking Research and Analysis at Fertiva Capital Management. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, boss.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're looking at the market indices. Despite a very gentle soft landing yesterday for the Nigerian banking sector, we saw some big names on the downside. Stanbic IBTC share price was down on the back of that earnings that it released despite a £1 dividend, interim dividend declared by the Tier 1 lender. UBA share price also fell, and that pulled the banking sector a little bit soft, but finished off a little bit slightly in the green territory. The Nigerian exchange limited index down by 0.02 on the back of consumer goods, where Flamis fell very sharply on Monday. The BRVM, the EGX30, the NSE in Nairobi, and the South African bourse is also in negative territory. Not a particularly positive trading day for Frontier African equities market. Let's take that away and talk about the East African top stories making the headlines as we start today. The Treasuries in Kenya is looking to tax exemption for the staff of Kenya Airways. The troubled airline is trying to get every support it can get from the government. Of course, Kenya Airways is owned with some majority shares by the Kenyan government, listed on a number of exchanges within the East African continent, but of course it's tradable on those exchanges for investors. WPP Scangroup is delaying its half-year results due to investigations that's been hogging the company for quite some time. And tea prices are depressed a little bit in Kenya because the volume of production is also rising. You have more supply in the market, prices get a bit depressed, 217 shillings per kilogram. And Onga Group Board is confirming Joseph Choge as the new managing director. And Mauritius says its tax collection down 5% in the 2021-2022 or 2020-2021 period, largely due to coronavirus, 89.3 billion rupees. Joshua, you want to have a cup of tea on this?
Well, I mean, to be honest, these are
for Kenya Airways. For Kenya Airways, by the way,
these are a little bit outside. Yeah, no. So, I mean, in terms of Kenya Airways, obviously we can understand that there's been a significant drop in air travel. But a lot of different airlines have been able to, with the help of various governments, stay afloat and continue to, have operations, But in terms of Kenya Airways, I think long term, they have to just weather the storm for what's going on currently. And I remember that at the time they were, doing quite well along with Ethiopian Airlines in terms of the top African, hub airlines. And so if they can, maintain that level or at least try their best to weather this current storm through 2021, I think they should hopefully start to recover by next year. And with the help of the government, I think they can do that. But, obviously it will still be difficult. I think they might also need to consider a change of, long-term change of strategy, obviously just due to the fact that, the coronavirus has exposed a lot of serious flaws within the current system. And so those need to be addressed. And if they can do that, then maybe they'll be a more resilient company going forward.
Okay, great. It's a whole lot of troubled weather out there for a number of airlines around the world, and African airlines have taken a very major hit, as it were, from South African Airways, some of the big names such as SAA to Air Mahawk, Egyptian Air, Tunisian Air, and all of that. So it's not been a very good time, as it were. But let's talk about the West African Nigerian market, because the Access Bank says Access Bank is planning, according to market sources, $375 million Tier 1 subordinated note, which we got the news on the street late yesterday. This will be it will be callable after 5 years. That's the offer is expected to come through around the middle of the month, in just about a week or so from now. But Access Bank is going to be the first bank in Nigeria floating a subordinated global debt note since the year 2021 started. I'm not even sure if anyone did any offering last year during the pandemic, by the way. Arise BV is investing a new tier one $75 million in EcoBank Transnational Incorporated, the parent company of the EcoBank Group. This comes after $350 million, which the bank did earlier and listed on the London Stock Exchange. Stanbic IBTC, weak revenue, dragged his half-year profit down by 50.1%, but is paying a dividend much bigger than Zenith and even Access Bank. They're paying 30 Kobo. This is Stanbic Bank coming through with 100 Kobo on the table. That's music to the ears of Joshua, by the way. And in Guinea, aluminum prices jumped yesterday. Shares of aluminum producing companies also jumped up because of the military coup, the displacing of the former president Alpha Conde. Supply concerns of whether bauxite, which is a major component of aluminum, will continue with the military junta now in office. And Moody's is holding Ghana's B3 credit rating, but the outlook for this big economy in West Africa remain negative. Surprising. Let's chew around the banking stories with you very quickly, Joshua, while I welcome Agnes Ajital, a managing partner at GBS Africa. Will look more about the global issues around the aluminum prices, the 83-year-old Guinean leader, Fakonde, who was displaced, and the whole jubilation that we saw on international television, the exit of the octogenarian president. But let's start with the banking story first. Let's talk about earnings. Josh, you have the floor.
Well, what we'll say is, So earnings in terms of, Access Bank, first of all, this 375 million tier one notes, we had the Access Bank call yesterday and there was no mention of it whatsoever. So it's a little bit of a surprise there. Although we are already seeing the announcement from EcoBank about their own 75 million tier one funds. But I think what we've seen, like I had already mentioned earlier on, is that Access Bank has, significantly improved their earnings across the board, both interest and non-interest income. And their profits have jumped, by over 40% year on year. But that is to be expected when they've acquired so many different subsidiaries across South Africa, Zambia, Mozambique, and the like. And so they just continue to expand, and that continues to, drive up their earnings. But speaking to management yesterday, we got the sense that they were quite happy with, their investment securities, their swaps specifically, which is where a lot of their interest income and some of their non-interest income came from. So going forward, I think they're still going to continue to focus on that strategy, although they did record, significant losses on some of their derivatives, but they would say that those were just markdowns as those matured. But overall, that strategy has worked for them. But in Stanbic's case, it hasn't really been the case, just because of the fact that we already knew that their, bank was struggling and they were focused more on the investment bank and the asset management for funds. But obviously, due to the current economic situation, I guess activity in those spaces has not been as buoyant. On top of that, in the asset management space, due to the strategy of the CBN, that probably affected the kind of volumes that they were seeing in terms of trading and in terms of fixed income securities. So all of those things compounded to really drag their earnings quite significantly. The only aspect of the earnings that is up year on year is their fees and commissions. Everything else is down. Interest income is down. Trading income is down. So I guess that is the main reason why we've seen this #1 dividend payout, because Stanbic, like every other bank, knows that you live and die on the dividend that you declare. So it's better for them. It's better for them to declare a dividend of #1. Yes. So it's better for them to declare #1 dividend that comes out to something about. Yeah. So their overall dividend payout will just be a little bit over 12 billion, which is, still less than the 22 billion that they've made for the half year. So they can very much afford to pay it. And I guess they don't need too much in terms of retained earnings. I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about the strategy at the investor conference sometime this week. So again, even though we've seen a slight, dip in the price of the stock, I'm sure that 1 naira is what is really stopping the bleeding and will, prevent it from becoming a real, bloodbath. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a mixed one, but the investors, I guess, should be encouraged that Stanbic is on their side and understands their plight. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, interesting breakdown. Thank you so much. Let me bring Agnes into the into the newsroom of FOB, because I'm sure Agnes will be surprised that Moody's retained B3 rating on Ghana, but still the outlook on that economy is still negative. And just a few borders down the line is Guinea roiling in the latest military coup. No one has an idea of where things are going by with now. How are you watching all these developments on the economic side of things, Agnes, over there in London?
Thank you, Boston. I just came dialing just for this story on Guinea, the coup and the impact on aluminium prices worldwide. Alpha Conde is out after 11 years in power. The man who came to power after being in opposition for about 40 years, promising democracy, promising human rights. He was nicknamed as Guinea's Mandela, showing you the hope these people had, the Guinean had on Alpha Conde. But unfortunately, just like the African politicians, once they get into power, you just become like the rest of them. You know, he changed the constitution.
Not like Nelson Mandela, he claimed to be. Not like Nelson Mandela.
Absolutely. But people were desperate, you know, and they thought after 40 years, Mandela was only in prison for 27 years, 40 years fighting. I'll compare him with another politician in Kenya who's always tried to be in power, but he never gets it. But anyway, this shows you that they have the goodwill, but something happens, something wrong happens when they get to power. I mean, like Buhari, we thought things would be better. Anyway, back to aluminium prices. Yesterday in London, they were selling at 2,650. That's the highest they've been for over 10 years. That's $2,650 per ton, right? The highest they've been in 10 years. This is after, obviously, the news of the coup, knowing that Guinea is the world's largest producer of bauxite, which is the high-grade ore that is used to make aluminium. The biggest exporter, and despite, apparently they have bauxite deposit of about 1.8 billion tons in the country, yet they're still so poor. They're just rich in potential, nothing else, and they export these bauxite to China. As you know, China is also the biggest producer of aluminium, you know, for a metal that is used in every household, cars, you know, electric cars, cans, you know, packaging, and a country that produces this core metal, and still as poor as they are. You know, that's what I keep asking, Boston. Why are we so poor, really, something?
Agnes, just a quick one. We saw about 2 back-to-back military coups in Mali, northern part of Nigeria, West Africa. So this year we've seen Mali, we've seen Guinea. Do you think we still have a whole lot with political instability? The threat of military dictatorship is never far away in a number of African sovereigns.
But in the military, you saw how the Guineans welcomed this. You saw them dancing in the street, obviously, because they just wanted Conde out. You know, as long as, I mean, they promised transition, they promised that production, particularly in the bauxite sites, will continue, and they've also promised continuity, promising that there won't be any violence. When you push people to the brink, what else do they do? So this West Africa, obviously with coups, you guys need to sort out your houses. But the democratically elected leaders leave the citizens no choice.
Let me ask Joshua very quickly on this political economy side of things. Joshua, do you think democracy is still very fragile in a number of African economies?
I mean, absolutely. As long as the leaders who have been elected, democratically elected, are not doing what they promised to do, there's always, you know, the political risk or the military risk that, you know, either the masses or the military will rise up and depose them. unfortunately. But we need to get out of this cycle as quickly as possible. Elect effective leaders, and those effective leaders need to rule effectively and then leave when their time is up. That is the most important thing.
I agree with you. With
Boston, maybe
Agnes
allow me to
hinting
add
about
that
this.
share price.
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead, Agnes.
I was just gonna add, if you have bought any shares in aluminium, you must be smiling all the way to the bank, because share prices surged for aluminium producers. So it also, I think, this is a reflection of how intertwined our economies are. So a coup in Guinea impacts the global economy, as seen with the prices in aluminium.
Yeah, I agree with you. The relevance and how strong we are, the correlation and how strong African resources are tied to the global economy, the global supply chains. It seems that we don't really appreciate that here. The political leaders on the African continent don't appreciate that and make it a very strong point, but we rather allow political crisis here to benefit other markets, benefit other economies, and what have you. I think there's a whole lot of learning curve that the political class in Africa across board need to take on board. Thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about the Southern Africa. Today we're expecting the second quarter GDP numbers from the South Africa Statistics Office. That is expected to come through anytime soon. Of course, South Africa's rebased GDP just about a week or so ago, adding about $37 billion US, coming to about $371 billion US for last year, but still Nigeria at number one, close to $400 billion US. Consumer confidence up slightly, a negative 10 points for the month of August. July was about 13%, 13 points negative. The Steinhoff issue is still out there. The former chairman, Crystal Wesse, is looking for, is backing the whole plan for a settlement. Capitec in the financial services banking expects about 500% surge in half-year earnings. Wow. And then Zimbabwe's central bank governor said the folks in the market should stop manipulating the exchange rate. That sounds a little bit familiar to Joshua in Nigeria, by the way. Then Zambia's August private PMI, 49.8 against 49.4 in July, is still underwater, by the way. But let me just start. I know Agnes will want to talk about Zambia a little bit, and President Ichilema, who's now has his feet wet in the water, finding out that governance in the real term is not as easy as being in the opposition. So, Joshua, where do you think the South Africa consumer confidence very, very low, 10 points negative?
I mean, that's not quite surprising, given all that's happened currently in that economy. I think it is to be expected. But overall, it will be interesting to see what the GDP figures say. Like you said, they've rebased their GDP. So on the surface, that means that probably there will be, slight growth, hopefully. But in the end, it's all about perception. And if consumer confidence is still low, then the perception will have to be adjusted, let's say, by whatever figures come out from the economy going forward. But I think more interestingly is the Zimbabwean central bank governor saying that they should stop manipulating the exchange rates. I think I find that quite amusing, simply due to the fact that with things like exchange rates, the more you shout or cry foul about them, the worse the situation gets, because
the more everybody digs in.
Yeah, because the chances are, if he wants to come out and enact policies, as we've seen in other countries, enact policies to stop this manipulation, chances are the exchange rates will continue to worsen. And we all know how that ends, unfortunately. So I think the best thing is to put in policies that focus on growth. The only way to combat, a weak exchange rate, if you want your exchange rate to strengthen, is to focus on productivity, focus on attracting foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, things that make your country attractive to foreigners that want to buy your currency, because it's all about demand and supply. The problem is that the demand for foreign currencies is way higher than the supply, and the only way to fix it is to fix the supply. And the sooner all these central bank governors get that, the better. That's it.
fix the supply side, and then you can just put policies on the demand side. Very interesting. Agnes, what's your take on the Zambia's Purchasing Managers Index? This adds to some of the hard work that is on the ground for President Ichilema and his female vice president.
So Hichilema's presidency, obviously, you can see its effect on the market with the PMI index at 49.8. I know it's still underwater, but the response has been good so far. Just like Alpha Conde, with Africa, I think we have to have muted optimism. It's early days for this cattle rancher, the richest man in Zambia. So he has no business to do anything than manage Zambia's resources. And as Joshua said, I think Joshua should get his phone number and just let him know how to ensure that he manages the economy well in regards to ensuring that they have good foreign currency or substantial foreign currency. But yeah, it's a response to his presidency, as you said, still under 50%, but it's a good prospect.
I think if there's anything Nigeria would want to hear from President Ichilema in Zambia is how to manage cattle and the ranch without the cattle causing havoc on farmers, on farmland and all of that, and how they prevent cattle headers and farmers conflict that's become so deadly, bloodletting in Nigeria, a whole lot of saber rattling, politically hot water in Nigeria. If we have, maybe we'll talk about that someday, how to resolve that. But President Ichilema has a whole lot of work to do managing the broader economy. Let's sum it up in North Africa. Egypt has denied imposing new taxes on stock market operations. There were news that it's going to be a new tax on the stock market implementation ready for 2022. Then Egypt's soaring rates attract inflows but carry risks. That's according to the S&P. Egypt has one of the good carry trade currency on the continent, but here is S&P warning. The return is good, but watch out for the downside. Islamic Development Bank portfolio in Egypt worth about $13 billion US. Egypt, as we said yesterday, will be hosting the first annual general meeting of the Islamic Development Bank, one of the biggest development DFI in the world. That will be by the year 2022. Next year, Mutandi's put turnover 689 million in the first half of the year, and Tunisia's investment company Star posts a net income of about 34.9%. Joshua, very quickly on the soaring rates that the S&P talked about and the currency in Egypt, and what's the carry risk do you think could be there for this particular currency in the market?
Well, what I'll say is, obviously, anytime rates go up, foreign portfolio investors, are licking their lips and, they're going to come in droves. Now, the question is, obviously, these costs, are they going to effectively bankrupt the country? But I think in the case of Egypt, that risk is not so high. I think, obviously, the only issue is that at some point, they might find themselves in a bit of a Nigeria situation where, we were soaring high with, OMO and TBill rates in the high teens, up to 16-17% at some point. And that obviously attracted quite a lot of investments from a lot of inflows. However, when you look at the cost of, servicing that debt, you start to wonder, maybe we should cool down. And then that cool down will now cause a reversal. And that is now the issue, is if there is a reversal somewhere down the line, that could, cause the exchange rate to also be affected. So effectively, it's just about managing your investors' expectations and also managing your level of your borrowing and your rates in the long term. So, but I think that obviously investors will take advantage of this for now.
Yeah, definitely. Last week we talked about Egypt's foreign debt, $185 billion US. That external debt alone, $185 billion. Nigeria is still struggling. Nigeria is still around about 82 billion US. So Egypt is way, way, way ahead, but a whole lot happening around there. That's a lot of bigger conversation. Agnes, let's just finish up with you on, give me your final thoughts as far as Egypt is concerned. Give me just about 30 seconds to wrap it up.
So just the story on the taxes on stock market operation, I thought that's quite creative and innovative. I obviously the response from the market would be negative, but I think it's a good way of collecting revenue for the Egyptian government. I've always really admired their operation. Remember, this is a government that came into power under very dodgy circumstances, Sisi, but throughout lockdown, the country has completely done way better than the rest of sub-Saharan African. Also, the Islamic development back portfolio exceeds 13 billion. Another interesting piece there, Islamic economy is worth trillion of dollars, and obviously Egypt being a Muslim-dominated country, it is interesting to see the portfolio at that level.
When the news came out yesterday, Agnes, it was very interesting about, okay, this stock market, new tax, whatever, and they just denied it within 24 hours or so. Well, and of course, a very big chunk of Egypt's stock market is in the hand of foreign investors. Foreign investors first, then Arab investors. Then you talk about Egyptians. It's in that order. So international investors they hold a chunk of the market. You have Arab investors, then you have local investors. So I think that particular announcement initiated by the Egyptian stock exchange perhaps rattled the market somewhat. And then they quickly step back and say, oh, sorry, everyone, we're not doing anything like that for now. Let's just see how it goes. But we're going to continue to dig deeper. Thank you so much, Joshua Debisi, Head of Banking Research and Analysis at Vertifa Capital Management, and Agnes Gitao, the Managing Partner at GBS Africa out of London. Thank you both for this Tuesday FOB. I am Bosinamo. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.